Hello, I'm Jake Horrifying, and this is Dude Horrifying. Today I got with me special co-host Matthew Slane. What do you have to say, Matthew?
I'm excited to talk about this. It's been killing me not having someone to talk about it with since it came out.
That's right, we're talking Werewolf by Night, the brand new horror movie that debuted. Well, I guess it's not a horror movie. I guess it's a TV special, but it debuted on Disney Plus October 7th of this year. It's been a couple weeks since it's come out, so that means this is full spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go over there and see it. But I bet most of y'all have already seen it since it has already been available, and we're here to talk about it. Repping your Universal Monsters shirt. I'll rep mine too. Look at that. Look at that. You know what? You know what you can tell with this movie? You can tell how much director Michael Giacchino loves the classic Universal Monster films.
Absolutely.
I mean, his directing, I believe this is his directorial debut,
It is.
It's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Very impressed with this one.
I think he directed. I think he also wrote. And I know he did the score.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was always a composer, so you knew the soundtrack was just going to be fire.
Oh, yeah. Reminds me of another famous horror director that directed and composed named John Carpenter. But, of course, John was more of a director than a composer, I'd say. I mean, Michael's won an Oscar as a composer, so to see him step into this realm, well, it's not something you see often, but it's super cool to see him not only do it, but successfully pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
What were your expectations coming into this? I'll tell you right now, I had some pretty low expectations.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's kind of like no secret that I've been disappointed with Marvel lately. I mean, that's a whole other debate, but ever since I heard they were going to do a Werewolf by Night, like just when they announced it, like, hey, we don't have a script, we don't have any actors in mind, we don't have a writer, director, nothing, but we are going to make it. I got so pumped because I'm super excited to see the supernatural side of the Marvel universe anyway. So I'm also pretty excited for Blade. And, nobody really talked about it. So I just kind of forgot it existed for a while. But then that first trailer dropped, and it did what I think was the right move, put it in black and white, and it looked good. But, of course, with Marvel being at the quality it has been as of late, I was worried. I was really worried. But it turned out great, and I loved it.
I saw that trailer. I wasn't looking for I hadn't heard that it was coming. Wasn't looking forward to it. Whenever I saw that trailer, there was a line in it. It's in the movie, and I guess it's like one of the only jokes, thank God. But it's the line, "I am rotting for you."
Good luck. I'll be rotting for you.
Said by Ulysses Bloodstone. I was like, what the fuck? I turned the trailer off after that. I was like, this is gonna be cheesy, corny, your typical MCU, Marvel taking over with comedy, and but then it came out, and I heard people raving about it, saying this is the first true Marvel MCU horror movie, and I would say so. I don't think, and this isn't to talk. There are many different podcasts that talk about Marvel movies. That's not us, but I will say I don't think that Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, which is claimed to be the first MCU horror movie, is a horror movie at all. This very much is. Not only with the style, the story, but how about the gore? The amount of blood.
They can get away with it because it's in black and white.
Oh, yeah. They got away with a lot of it. I mean, we had
a lot.
Blood splatter on the camera lens.
Throats ripped out. And I think at one point you could see like intestines just kind of coming out. I'm like, oh my God.
It's everything I would want. Like, this is as horror, as metal as it gets. and it pays so much tribute to the original Universal monsters while being something new.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the characters, who were some of your favorite characters from this?
Well,
Very small cast.
It's a very small cast. I can't say. I mean, given the I think 55-minute runtime, there's not much they can do with the characters. So the other hunters, they get almost no time for their personality or their character to show, except like maybe 1 minute for the Scottish guy.
Yeah, Joven.
Joven, yes.
Joven. However, in Disney Plus, they called him Joshua in the subtitles, so.
I don't know. But I think with the time that they did have allotted to them, they were able to give a good sense of character and personality to Man-Thing, Elsa Bloodstone, and Jack Russell, the main character. It's very subtle. Like, you're not going to see some crazy character arcs, but there are like subtle things. And I thought it was done smartly with what they had.
I really liked Jack Russell's character. I really, really did enjoy the character. I going into it, not having read these comics, not being familiar with Werewolf by Night, not knowing that Jack Russell was going to be a werewolf, it was really fun to see that he wasn't a hunter, that he was a monster, he was a werewolf, and I thought it was a cool twist. And then I rewatched it, and there's some serious foreshadowing at the beginning. So at the beginning, they're going over the story. You know how it's talking about how Ulysses Bloodstone's dead, and it's talking about how everyone's gathering. There's a quote, and it says, "They're gathering for a ceremonial hunt which will decide who next will wield the Bloodstone, and woe to the monster who finds itself among them." Now that line, upon first watch, I'm thinking, oh, that's it's talking about the monsters they're hunting. But when you rewatch it your second time, it's right when Jack Russell comes on screen that line is said, showing that line is actually talking about the character of Jack Russell.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was perfectly woven there. Classic. That's what the classic monster movies used to do, is stuff like that. Like whenever there's a narrator or something and it's talking about a character, the character that'll be the first time that character will show up on screen. Super cool to see something like that happen here.
I didn't even notice that. I just really loved this special.
Yeah, I wish it was. I think my only complaint about it is that it's too short.
I know.
With credits, I believe it's at about 49 minutes. That's a TV show. That's an episode of The Walking Dead.
To go back to that whole, I'm rotting for you, I think the joke was bad, but that's the point. It was like an undead dad joke, and it just went into the very, I don't want to say corny or cheesy, but when I saw that, I didn't get mad and turn off the trailer. When I saw that, I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be really playing into like the old school Universal monster type movies. Like they're just going all in. So that's what made me even more interested in it. Like when I saw that trailer, I got so excited. And just everything about how this movie looks, sounds, and feels is just spot on. Like you could tell that there was so much passion put into it. Like so much passion and love and care. And you could really feel that. And I also love the fact that they use like a lot of practical effects. Like the whole Marvel overworks their CGI artists, and that's why CGI is kind of taking a dookie right now. This, it's so much practical effects, and I love that. Even when Jack transforms and he's in his werewolf form,
mm-hmm.
I just like the look of it. You might have some young buck saying like, oh, he looks stupid. First of all, screw you, kid. He looks awesome. Second, I would much rather have practical, crafted from love, makeup and suits and whatever, instead of just CGI. It's more tangible, you know.
I think a lot of people agree with you there. I think that's a very popular statement. Is people prefer, because I don't know who said it. A director said that an audience is smart enough and they can tell when something's not real. So that's why practical effects are so important. Did you know that Man-Thing is a practical effect?
No, he's not.
He is.
That is a very fluid practical effect. I thought that was CGI.
I'll post the picture here, and I'll send it to you after. But so pretty much what they did is they created a Man-Thing with it. It didn't have arms and it didn't have legs. The legs and arms are CGI, but the body and face is very much real. That's why in that final shot when the color comes, it looks very good.
Wow. I like how you just said the audience is smart enough to tell whether or not something's real.
Yeah, and then you couldn't tell.
Like it was so fluid. Like the way he moved and everything, it was so fluid. I was like, there's no way that's practical. That's got to be CGI.
I was blown away too whenever I saw it. But I could clearly tell, and after the color came, but black and white, it was a little bit harder to be able to tell for me. But when the color came, it was like, okay, that's practical. That looks very, very realistic. Very impressed with it. Also, Man-Thing, played by Carrie Jones. Do you know who Carrie Jones is?
That sounds very familiar.
He played a character in the Book of Boba Fett called Black Chrysanthemum. And he's also...
Oh!
Yeah, he's also donned the mantle of the Predator.
God.
He's here as the Man-Thing. The voice, though, was done by someone else. That's actually the only actor who I wrote down the name of, because whenever I saw Carrie Jones, and this is a fantastic cast, but whenever I saw Carrie Jones in this, I was like, I love stunt actors. I love people that are stuntmen that put on suits. You never see their face. Those are the people that bring the most heart and most energy to something like this. So I was super thrilled to see that he was a part of this.
Oh man, yeah. There are a lot of great actors in here. Like I said, with the whole shortness of the runtime, the actors really had to dive deep, I guess, almost into the soul of this character as much as they could and bring out what they could. And it's very, very, very subtle. Just the way I can't remember the actor's name, but something Bernal Garcia, the guy who plays Jack Russell. I thought he did a fantastic job because you can tell that he's just a kind guy who just kind of wants to chill. But you can see that there's just so many layers to his character. Like if he ever got like a feature film or something, you know that it is just rich. His character is just rich with potential.
Oh yeah.
And then Elsa Bloodstone, played by Laura Donnelly, I believe her name is. I don't know. Do you have it written down?
No, the only actor I had written down was Carrie Jones. I was just so excited.
I think it was Gail Bernal Garcia was Jack Russell, and Elsa Bloodstone is played by, I believe her name is Laura Donnelly. I could be completely wrong, but she did a great job too. I really enjoyed her character of Elsa Bloodstone.
So the beginning of this film really sets these characters up.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying earlier, you're introduced to Jack Russell whenever it says that they'll find themselves a monster among them. He walks in and you watch him looking around. He seems kind of out of place. He's looking at these decapitated taxidermied monster heads that are placed up all over this room. He comes up and interacts with Joven, who talks with him and is gleefully telling him about his 57 kills and how next year is his 30th season. And then Joven actually interrupts him right before he touches the Bloodstone, because you'll notice that as soon as he walks in there, he turns, reaches his hand for the Bloodstone, and it's a very good thing he didn't touch it, because later on, that plays into effect. But you're really starting to see the inner workings here and getting to know these people. Joven is a very proud hunter with a lot of kills. He's the most kills for a normal human. 57 kills is the most in the group. You get to see Elsa come for the funeral for this ceremony, and her mother Verusa not handling it well, telling her that she abandoned them. She hadn't gotten training, even though Elsa says she hasn't gotten his training. She'd left for 20 years, came back, and Verusa's not happy about it. But she's going to let her daughter partake in the ceremony. But it's interesting that Elsa is supposed to have gotten the stone, but because of her 20-year absence, she lost the rights to it and had to win it through this ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get introduced to Barasso, who has 26 kills. Azarel, she has 37 kills. Leorn, who has 43 kills. And then we find out as an audience that Jack Russell has over 100 kills.
I'm willing to bet that he was a hunter, because the fact that I think he probably was a hunter, and he just would wait until, I saw a video, he'd wait until every full moon. I forgot what they were talking about, but they use math to basically say hey, because in the movie they say he's been a hunter for this many seasons, so this many years, and he's got 100 kills, so it's once a month, 12 times. He went out. The point is, he went out when he would change into a werewolf and go after the monsters. That's the theory I have.
Well, he says that.
Oh, he says?
Yeah, so he's in the cage. After they get captured, Elsa and Jack, he says, "I won't hurt you, but what I will become has hurt many people." So he's saying that he, as a human, doesn't hurt people. It's not till he turns and becomes a werewolf that he goes and hunts. And then he talks about, whenever he talks about that, I assume it's a vampire, the bat-looking sculpture, he says, "I fought him a couple times." I believe that is in reference to, and people might say I'm very wrong about this, but I believe that's in reference to Dracula, because Werewolf or Jack Russell has fought Dracula in the comics.
I don't think that specific. I'm assuming it was a vampire too when I saw it. I don't think that's Dracula, but I'm sure he is some kind of powerful vampire.
100%.
I don't think when they bring vampires into Blade, I don't think you're going to see Mahershala Ali just swiping his sword at bats. I think that's probably a power more reserved for the higher standing vampires.
So I believe there's kind of like how there's good people and bad people. I believe there's good monsters, bad monsters, and obviously he's good friends with Man-Thing, who is named Ted. I love that he's named Ted, by the way. I think that's awesome. And I could totally see that dynamic happening, where there's this whole underworld of monsters, and some of them hunt each other, kind of like animals. There's animals that coexist with each other, and there's animals that hunt other animals. I could totally see that with these monsters.
Mm-hmm. Instead of an animal kingdom, it's a monster kingdom. I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's also possible that the over 100 kills that he has is a lie, and that was just to get him into the door so that he could go rescue Ted.
But that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier before I just started spewing out garbage. I think he had to have actually been a hunter and go out as a werewolf and kill all these monsters. Then otherwise, how the hell did he get in? They're just like, that's
True.
like, it seems it'd be pretty easy. I could walk in and it's like, hey, I got 75 kills. And it's like, okay, come on in.
Doors open. Come
Doors
on
open,
in.
guy. Come
Welcome.
on in, guy.
Shoot, I got 180 kills. Come
Shit.
on in.
Dang.
So they all have this meeting where they're getting told the story. All these death dealers, as Verussa calls them, are getting told the story about Ulysses. And one of them, Barroso, says that Elsa doesn't deserve to be there because she's not a hunter. And you can see that there's this rift between the hunters and Elsa. There's this not necessarily bad blood, but there's this friction between them, which will come into play quite literally as soon as they begin the hunt. So we start off the hunt. Jack Russell is the lucky one that gets to go first. This shot is awesome. Him following a flaming tuba going into that battle arena is one of my favorite things. Of that, I have a feeling that Michael added the flaming tuba because of his love for music. But I love that scene.
It's a great shot. It's a lot of great cinematography in this.
It is. A lot of well done shots. I mean, they knew what they were doing. I'm sure he's seen a lot. I mean, he's worked with a lot of different people.
Probably picked up a few things.
100%. So he goes into the arena, and the first person he encounters is Elsa. And he doesn't try to kill her. He says, let's pass each other by. In which she very funnily goes, what?
I suggest we just pass each other by.
What?
And I loved that. You begin to see their characters interact, and she is just so confused by who he is, especially with the friction that was caused with the other hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And then she saves him. She saves him from Joven, who swings his axe at his head.
He immediately set himself apart from the other hunters.
Yep. And that is kind of what makes the story turn its head on its heels. Next, you have him going and meeting Man-Thing, Ted. And after that, first you get to see a really, really cool kill where Elsa kills Leorn. She cuts his arm off, takes the shooter blade that he has on his arm,
like a little crossbow, it looks like.
Yeah. Shoots him through his own face with it. I mean, it's gory.
You see it go straight like behind his chin and up, and like you could see it like props open his mouth. So it was just like
He's making noise. He's like,
I did not expect that. That's the first part of gore they get you. Like an arm cut off. Dude, Star Wars has been doing that. All right. And you see blood, but it's black and white. So that's what it plays back to when we said they can get away with a lot. Straight's cut off his arm, but okay, we've seen that. But then that bolt goes straight through his mouth. And I'm like, oh my God.
And they're hiding from Joven, and she's holding him, keeping his mouth shut.
I was like, wow.
Oh, yeah. Cold-blooded.
That caught me off guard, but I was really happy.
And that is what I believe that is the only human-on-human kill in the arena. Because the only other person that dies is Joven, and that's at the hands of the Man-Thing.
No, Elsa kills like 2 more people.
Right. That's at the end of the movie after she gets captured.
Oh, like in the arena? Yeah.
Yeah. So she ends up in a mausoleum, and Jack runs away from Azrael, who hears him talking to Ted, and shuts the door of the mausoleum. And that's where more character development happens between Jack and Elsa's character, where they're trapped in this mausoleum, and he's telling her that he wants to free Ted and that he could use her help. and he can help her by getting her the Bloodstone. And this is when I realized that this movie takes place in what I believe is modern time. Because the dates, the years on the mausoleum are like 1986 is one that I remember. So it's very interesting I'm trying to figure out in what point in time does this take place because of the music they play, the style in which it's filmed. And this clearly says like this is happening within the last 30 to 40 years, which I believe it's actually as modern as today. But we just, as an audience, feel like it's a lot older because of the style that it was filmed. And she defiles her aunt's grave and takes a key out because her aunt anticipated coming back to life and needed a way out of the mausoleum. And she opens the door and they help Man-Thing escape. And then we get the big reveal. Everyone finds out that Jack is a monster. How do you feel about this whole sequence?
What, like just them releasing Man-Thing? Like saving him? I don't know. It's so serene. It's like, man, look at that boy go. He wastes no time. He darts. He gets the fuck out of there. Like you can see him in the distance, just darting it. And I was just like, look at that boy go. That boy is out.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
I don't know why. It was kind of funny to me. But
because Ted's like, or not Ted. Ted is the Man-Thing. Jack's like, I'm always having to save you, Ted. And so it's so funny to see him dart away like that. Like he's just glad to get away from there.
Yeah, and then he just leaves Jack, and he's like, okay, I'll see you later.
Elsa snatches the Bloodstone. Jack goes to pick it up, and nope, he gets denied from it.
And then the other hunters come in with what's the mother's name again?
Verussa, yeah.
Verussa. And then Verussa said for some reason, I think it's one of my favorite lines. She says, I can't wait to find out what breed of evil you are.
Yep.
I can't wait to find out what breed of evil you are.
Well, I can't wait to find out what breed of evil you are.
And it goes to show you that much like how the special is filmed, their morals are very like black and white. Very black and white. Like, oh, monster, evil. Even though, I mean, yeah, Man-Thing killed a bunch of your boys, but you guys were going after him. It was just self-defense.
Which, I want to go ahead and point out that you're very right. This says it's very black and white and that the monsters are evil and the humans are good. Very, very much reminiscent of those classic Universal monster films. For example, Frankenstein, when he was made, Frankenstein's monster, which I call Frankenstein. If people don't like that, kill me.
Saves time.
Frankenstein is innocent. He's got this innocence behind him. He quite literally was born yesterday. And I think you see really in the Bride of Frankenstein that he just wants friends. He meets the old man and he just wants to have a friend. And he wants to be accepted, but he's just not used to it. And you see the reaction of people seeing him as a monster and not getting to understand him. You begin to feel bad for Frankenstein. And I think that's something that a lot of these classic Universal Monsters movies did. Like, for example, Wolfman. Talbot didn't want to be a werewolf, but he was, and he was hunted for it. And I think there's a lot of sympathy to be had for these characters. These characters that are essentially outcasts of the world and are viewed as evil, but in reality they're not, and they want to be accepted. And I think you really see that parallel here, and I think it's because of Michael Giacchino's love for those type of classic monster films.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to throw that out there before we get into the next sequence, because the second half of this TV special is by far the best.
It goes bananas.
I love it. I love it. This reminds me of just classic. The transformation scene, but with Jack, is super fun.
It's so well done.
It is. It doesn't need to. It's not replicating like American Werewolf in London and showing you the animatronics they used to make it look like it's happening before you. It didn't do what Wolfman did, where it just kind of showed Talbot in his human form and then in the werewolf form.
And he just kind of fades into it, or like in the one with the remake of it with Benicio del Toro, where it's just like one giant CGI thing.
Yep.
I just thought it was filmed really, really well.
Yeah, we get to see Elsa and the silhouette. It's Elsa watching in terror. It's the silhouette of this creature transforms from human to werewolf, and I loved it. The strobe light effect, everything about it was just fantastic. And it's probably one of my favorite things of this film. Well, kind of, it's my favorite thing of most werewolf films is seeing that transformation take place. But I like that it leaves the actual transformation up for interpretation. Like you as the viewer see the silhouette of it, but you get to imagine what it looks like in your own head, whereas American Werewolf in London straight up shows you this is what happens.
Mm-hmm. So they wake up because once the hunters capture them, they both get knocked out. And part of the scene of like the third act, this is what I mean when it goes really, really into Jack's character, and you can see like the layers, and there's so much history behind him, you know? There's so much history, there's so much potential, and you could tell the actor portrayed him so well. But he wakes up and he's just like, he kind of looks around, he realizes what's happening. He's like, oh, well, okay. Probably gonna kill me or something. And then Elsa's like, hey, just make it quick. And he's like, hey, don't worry, man. Full moon is in like 4 days. And she's like, yeah, but bloodstone can turn you instantly. He's like, oh, okay. So she's like, just make it quick. But then the hunters come into the room, and Verussa Bloodstone starts using the bloodstone, the amulet.
Well, there's actually a really good quote here before we go further into this, where he says, don't do this, I won't show you mercy. And she says,
oh yeah,
this is us showing mercy to you. And I thought that's a very curious quote and on par with what she said earlier when she says, I want to see what breed of evil you are.
So yeah, so they see it as like, they don't only see it as, I mean, they see it as black and white, like, oh, if you're a monster, you're evil. But I feel like they see it as also, it's like these, well, for example, in Jack's case, they know he has to transform into something because he's been walking around as a human. So they know he's cursed. So they see it as, we're getting rid of evil and we're also saving someone at the same time through killing him.
Yeah. Giving him the, I don't know, fitting in. It's like putting a dog down. That's how they view it.
Pretty much.
And then before she turns him, he smells Elsa.
Yeah, there you go.
Tells her, look me in my eye as this happens. And she goes, how does this work? And he goes, once. I like that.
That's the part I'm talking about, because he says he starts sniffing all around her, and she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I need to remember you. And she's like, does this work? And he was like, once, which I'll come back to that in a sec. But he's also saying, like, he also said, no matter what, do not break eye contact. That's why in the trailer you see her and she's like holding on and she's like so scared and like she doesn't take her eyes off, because I think like in the dog world that's like a sign of dominance or whatever. I think that's how it was explained to me. But to go back when he says like hasn't ever worked before and he says once, I think that's in reference to someone very, very special to him, very personal, who probably isn't around anymore. And it kind of hints at, I mean, him being a werewolf, I'm sure is not fun for him, but there's almost a tragic element behind it where, yeah, it worked once, but then maybe he tried to do the same. Maybe they got in a situation, maybe it was his significant other, and it just didn't work the second time. And then he wakes up and she's not doing all right. She's kind of dead.
Because of you. And that's something that people are I'm seeing people are talking about. I mean, that's what I mean. This should have been a movie. This should have been 30 minutes longer. I think the perfect length of a horror film is about 90 minutes. And I wish we had just gotten a little bit more of that character. But, I mean, we'll talk about that more at the end. But that is a big part of his character, is that what he's interacting with Elsa and telling her about his family, because he talks about family referencing Ted and people that he's known before. So it would have just been fun to see more of that. But I have a feeling they're setting this up for something in the future. And then, of course, Verussa uses the Bloodstone and begins the transformation. You have that awesome strobe effect. And then he grabs Verussa's arm and they start shocking him with those tasers. It becomes super foggy, super smoky inside the room. And that's when it's revealed that he has broken out. And then the gore, well, it's fun to watch.
Calamity just ensues.
And I loved when they give close shots of the character of Jack, because you could see the cosmetics they've used on him, the makeup, the special effects. I mean, they did him up like the way Lon Chaney Jr. was done up in the original Wolfman film. I mean, they obviously had to change things. But they showed the markings on his face to show us that, it's Jack. Hey, look, he's got the markings. Or at least that's how I guess people are able to tell. I don't know. I haven't read the comics, but they show that it's a similar look but different. It's super fun to see. I love seeing that.
And you can't forget that amazing shot where like he jumps out and he's just standing there as the werewolf. And you hear Michael Giacchino's amazing score. And
great score. So
that's when I knew, I was like, I mean, I already really liked this, but when I got to that moment, I was like, yeah, I love this. I absolutely love this.
The whole second, like the first half, the first time I watched the first half, I was like kind of out of it. I was like, man, this movie, I don't know what this movie's about. And then the second half happened and I realized it started to really come together for me. And I love the execution. I love the violence. I love the blood, and I love watching the sequence go down where he's just tearing them apart, doing exactly what he told Verussa he would do, and not show them any mercy whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole sequence is just, God, it's so good. Something I never thought I would see in a Disney film. And while all this is going down, Elsa's over there fighting Baraiso and Azrael, and slits Azrael's throat and puts a sword through her head. So it gets rather bloody in this final sequence.
Yeah, she like puts the sword down and like knocks his head onto it and just like sticks in his throat, and then she just takes it out and it's just, and then like right in the head. And I was like, yeah, no, this would not have worked in color. They would not have allowed that at all.
It would have been fun to see, though.
Oh, so fun. But there's no way Disney would have ever allowed that. And I noticed on a video like talking about it in the cage before he transforms, Jack is like looking all around because like he already knows like there's all these like trophies of all these monsters. So I always wonder, is like, why is he looking around again? And in video, they pointed out he's looking around for vantage points. Like as soon as he wakes up and he realizes I'm in a cage, they're gonna try something. He's like, I'm probably gonna transform, and he's just looking around for like vantage points. So when he first breaks out of the cage and they're like, where is he? You can see like in the top left corner of the screen, you can see him like there's just an area where it's just pitch black. And I think it's on one of the taxidermied monsters, and that's when he jumps out. But you can kind of see like him moving around, and I was like, it's just every little thing in this piece of just art has a purpose. There's nothing the characters say or do does not have a purpose that unfolds later in the story.
Yeah, 100%.
And I really like that.
Oh, it's fun.
Very.
I like very tightly written, very well put together. Everything had a purpose. There wasn't anything. One thing I'm super glad that Marvel does that they didn't do here is they allowed this to be its own thing. They didn't tie it in with anything else. They kept it as its own story. They didn't add any extra stuff they didn't add a post-credit scene. We didn't need any of that. It gave us a tightly written story and gave it to us and just said, here, have it. Let's see how it does. That's
Happy
probably
Halloween.
what this was. This was let's see how this does. Let's see if we're going to do something like this again.
Absolutely.
So after the chaos ensues, Jack escapes, and Elsa is there with Verussa talking about the Bloodstone, and this is I brought this up earlier where I said that Ted is always getting saved by Jack because Ted comes, breaks in after Jack's already gone, and is there to save Jack, but Jack's already gone and ends up saving Elsa instead. I thought that was funny, but also showed the family that the two of them have together.
I just absolutely loved the relationship between Ted and Jack. Loved it. But after, once everyone is just dead, and it's only Verussa, but she's not on screen yet, Elsa walks up to Jack, and she's like, Jack, and he, like, pounces on her, and he's, like, ready to just claw her throat out, and he, like, hesitates, and she caresses his face. What do you think that was? I mean, I wouldn't say it was romantic.
I would say, well, one thing to note is
it's
when he does that,
sincere emotional moment.
She is terrified. When you rewatch that scene, you'll see she is shaking super hard, absolutely petrified. Goes up and does that. I think it was just kind of like a dog, sometimes you have dogs that seem aggressive and they bark and they're scared of you and they're barking and they're about to attack and you reach your hand out and you just gently pet them to show them that you're okay. I think it was something like that.
I can definitely see that. I also see it as, because, I mean, if it was supposed to be romantic, they didn't do a great job at setting it up. But they did do a great job at just setting up just the relationship between them in general. Like, I think instead of it being romantic, I think it was more like a caress of the face out of sympathy. Because, like, it all started when he said, hey, let's just pass each other by. Like, she knew this guy's different. This guy isn't trying to kill me. And then, like, throughout the movie, she's like, oh, he's different. He wants to save the monster, all this, and this. And then she sees him transform and just all the pain, everything he has to go through. And so when she finally caresses his face and gets like a personal look at him, it's out of sympathy. It's like, you're a great man and you don't deserve this. And so I felt like it was a bit of sympathy, you know?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like you're almost an unwritten way of saying like, you're not a monster, and like her understanding, maybe coming to the realization of herself that not all monsters are just bad. You know,
Yeah.
like
100.
it's more black and white, which then goes to the whole color thing, and I think that's what the color represents.
Perhaps.
But
So
I don't know.
I love whenever it does the transition from black and white to color there at the end.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in
Because they play the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Judy Garland, which is used in the very, very, very popular movie Wizard of Oz, which is a movie known for not only being in black and white, but also being in color. So very obvious what they were trying to do there, what they were trying to convey to the audience. I think that, like you said earlier, you said that their stance on monsters was black and white. Whenever you talked about Verussa talking about the evil that Jack was, and I thought black and white and color was this point of view from the Bloodstone, right? The Bloodstone family, Verussa taking control of the Bloodstone family, with Verussa becoming the head of household for the Bloodstones. The point of view that she has on monsters is black and white. After she dies and Elsa gets possession of the Bloodstone, the view on monsters is not black and white anymore. It opens up. It becomes colorful. Like it's showing that the stance that monsters are evil and humans are good is no longer black and white. And that was the meaning that all that represented. Quite beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, the whole thing, like, colors have meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be giving him too much credit, but do you think that when they, again, these could just be how they look in the comics, so, you know, don't come at me if you're a big Werewolf by Night fan, I'm sorry. But if it's not part of their costumes and it's just strictly clothes they picked out for this special, do you think they use the colors of, like, for example, Elsa's clothes to convey like a certain message or emotion, you know? Because like when it comes to color, her jacket is red. Now she may look like that in the comics, I don't know. Or do you think, because red is used to convey love and like compassion, do you think with her jacket being red, it also signifies, along with the color change, of her growing compassion for the monsters?
I think it's just the color that she wears in the comics, but
Yeah, I was probably looking way too deep into that.
I thought the only thing that I made was a connection. I don't even know if it's much of a connection, but I just couldn't help but think like that color red reminds me of Wanda, and the Bloodstone reminds me of Wanda's powers, and the way it transitioned from color or from black and white to color reminded me of WandaVision doing that. And I said, okay, I get it. But that's probably just reaching.
A coincidence.
Also, yeah, it's probably a coincidence, but I mean, it felt very familiar seeing it. That's not to knock them because this movie is very good. It's just some things because of the universe that you're in, are going to seem very similar to a lot of us.
True.
But as a horror movie, this is awesome. Very reminiscent of the classic monster films. The grainy film look that it had. I don't know if they actually shot this on film. Probably not, though. Most things are shot digitally. Whatever filter they used, or if they did use film, looked great. It looked like a film shot in the 1930s. Michael Giacchino 100% nailed it, knew exactly what he wanted, and successfully pulled it off. Tons of fun to watch. Characters were awesome. The practical effects were amazing. The gore was great. And I know that if this comes back in the future, it's probably going to be in color. But man, I wish we could stick to that black and white look, because artistically, I mean, especially when you have the Bloodstone as the only color with red throughout the entire film until the end, it's just so nice to see. And I think more films should be doing this.
And just take more creative steps just out into the wild. Because this is easily the most creative thing Marvel has done in a while, if not ever.
I would say they gave him full control and said, I bet they said this, because I mean, I don't imagine, I mean, the budget had to have been good, but not like, I mean, it's got to be good for a damn horror movie, better than most horror movies, but it's not going to be on the par of $200 million Avengers, especially when most of your set is that interior where they all meet at the very beginning, where the casket for Ulysses is at. That's where the majority of the film takes place. That's where they all meet up at the beginning. That's where the showdown goes at the end. So I don't imagine they spent too much on sets. I don't imagine this cost an incredible amount of money to make. So I bet they felt a lot more like open to letting Michael do as he pleased, to letting the writers write what they wanted and not having to go and mess with it too much. Maybe they said, here's little points we want to get across, but you have creative control, because this very much does not feel like the Kevin Feige or any of them went and had their fingers all over. This felt like a director's film.
Like no studio control.
Yes. And if there was studio control, good job. You guys killed it. But I think it's fair to give Michael all the credit here.
Yeah. Would you like to see like a Werewolf by Night 2, or just like these three characters show up like just in other places in Werewolf or in MCU?
I want to see a Werewolf by Night prequel origin story. Black Widow can get one. I want to see Jack Russell's origin story. I want it to also be in black and white. I want it to be spooky. I want it to look, if it's going to take place in the 90s, I want it to be, I don't know. I just want that aesthetic back.
I agree. I think, well, I don't know, because I would love to see like an origin, but I also kind of like how it's like there's mystery to it, you know?
Yeah. And I
So
understand that.
It's hard, but I would absolutely love to see more of those three characters in the future, but keep them on their own thing. Like if they're gonna interact with like any other like big characters, Blade is fine, but I'm gonna lose my shit if I see fucking Werewolf by Night Jack trying to go after Kang. I'm gonna lose my mind.
The very opening of this was the Avengers, and that very opening shot showed the Avengers before going down. I immediately was like, they just can't go 5 fucking minutes without showing the Avengers in these movies. Mm-hmm. So to know that was probably just what the studio told him to do, and then it got to be something new, was great. And I really don't want to mix that. I really want this.
Continue.
I really want this to stay horror. I want this to not become the action comic book film. Yeah. I want this to stay grounded, not as grounded as a horror movie could be. And explore this. I mean, you brought the first monster film to Disney, I think. I mean, besides like the cheesy Under Wraps or Phantom of the Movie Theater or whatever the fuck it was called. This is the first real monster movie that Disney's made, and paying homage to the original monster films. I just think that it would be super cool to see this stay monster related. Blade isn't really horror in my opinion. I think Blade stays more on the realm of action.
Yeah.
So if we could keep this part as horror as possible, but have him go, he can be a part of other movies and that still be action, but the Jack Russell Werewolf by Night movies be horror, that'd be great for me.
Yeah.
What would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think I don't know. I wouldn't give it a 10 because it's hard to be like a 10 in my book. Because that is like legendary masterclass filming. I'd say this is a 9. This is probably a 9. This is amazing. I loved it.
I give it a 7. I don't think it was long enough. I don't think the characters were fleshed out enough. I did think that it was a ton of fun, and I did thoroughly enjoy the story. I don't think there's like getting out of it, right? Going into it is I had low expectations. Coming out of it, I was excited, but I didn't leave feeling fulfilled. I left wanting more, which is normal to feel for horror movies. But just, I don't know, that 47-minute runtime, they did good with what they had.
Yeah.
I really, really would have loved more character development. But they really did dive into Elsa and Jack, and that was their goal. So it's a 7 out of 10 for me. Close. I mean, 7.5 if I did that, but I don't do that. It's a 7 leaning towards an 8.
Well, for what it is and what Marvel gave it, I give it a 9. But if I was to like look at it from just like a standpoint as just like a regular movie, I'd probably give it like a 7 or 8. But like for what it was, like it was a special. It's not like a movie, Like I'd give it a 9 just for what it was and what it had to work with. But I guess like if I'm just comparing it to movies and shows or whatever, then I'd probably give it a 7. It was good.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I have watched it again. Watched it
Absolutely
2.5 times. It's fun. It's quick. I mean, a horror movie, like, I don't want long horror movies. Don't get me wrong. I love when movies are long, but there gets to be a point where something that's too long just isn't as fun because there's just too much going on. And I think, like I said earlier, the perfect length is about 80 to 90 minutes. I think it makes sense. Like Alien, I believe, is over 2 hours, but they utilize the time great. If you can find the way to utilize that time, it's fantastic. I think that 56 minutes or 54 minutes with the credits and stuff included is a fine runtime. It leaves me wanting more. If it had been 80 minutes, though, I really would hope that they'd be able to fill that time with more material and not fluff. But I guess I'll walk away happy with what we got because it was very good.
What do you think about that last scene? It was like a 2-minute scene. It's like after color comes in, just goes, Jack wakes up, and it's just him and Man-Thing talking. It's just like another day for them. They're just like, you want something to eat? And he's just like, yeah. And he's like, what do you want? And he's just like, Man-Thing's like saying all this. He's like, yeah, I could do sushi. And that's just it.
Yeah, that was fun. Man-Thing was also saying, I came to rescue you. And he's like, you didn't come to rescue me. I always come to rescue you. But I love that little banter that they had. And
just
it was fun to
plays more on the relationship they have, which I absolutely loved.
So that's all we got for Werewolf by Night. Very fun. If you watch this, you've seen the movie or TV special, whatever the hell you want to call it. We enjoyed it. We think that we want to see, well, we don't think, we know we want to see more. And I'm curious to know what everyone else thinks about it. Before I go, I want to say I'm sorry. I haven't posted in a while. Got sick. Had to do some travel. There's going to be a few videos coming out within literally the next 7 days. Keep your eyes peeled. And a big thank you to Matthew Slane for coming back out here.
Of course, no problem.
Tons of fun. Literally just having a blast out here. You saw that. I'm not cutting that out. You saw Matthew do that just now on this podcast.
Oh, that's I'm stretching face, and it feels so good.
Yeah, we get all stiff and stuff behind the camera. He's turned into a monster. I just used the bloodstone on him.
Oh, shit. I actually almost fell right there. I just shit myself.
Oh, that's it.
Stinky.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thanks for having me.
Stay horrifying, my dudes.